Gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We've got a great show lined up. We're going to slip right into the question period right in time, but we have a lot of content that has been happening since the last question period. We had the budget. It's such a mess. Chris Donchma crossed sides. He crossed the aisle. What a traitor. I always had suspicions about Chris Donchma, I assure you. I kind of like the guy, but well, obviously we know now he's a sellout. Let's get into this. We've got a bunch of committee pieces that we're going to be watching before we get into question period, but we will cross right over to question period in perfect time to see what's going down in the House of Commons. Wednesdays are always wacky. Let's get into this. Let's kick it off. Let's go.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal. I will mention, smash that subscribe right away. Like, it helps, like, when you smash the like right away, it does help more than when you wait until later. This is going to be a great show. I assure you it won't disappoint. Politics.
WTF.
Hey, everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. You know I am. I am Canadian. Come on! I love this country where I am. This land is where I make my stand. The bars are crooked, yes, truer than
the one we call Canadians.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this.
Oh yeah.
Straight into committees, guys. We're going right there.
Questions orales.
Oral questions, questions orales.
Let's see what's happening in the House of Commons right now. Clown circus at the sausage factory. Let's go.
Do communicate directly with the Palestinian factions and do try to bring about a resolution of the conflicts between the different factions.
Thank you. Next, we have MP Bill Blair. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you very much to our witnesses for appearing before us today, and for the insights that you have provided with us. We are grateful. If I may, I'd like to just simply begin with a bit of an observation and ask you to comment, perhaps. I believe it's been very clear. Canada has never drawn any equivalency between the State of Israel and Hamas, which is, as you've just said, Mr. Levesque, a terrorist organization. But we do, I think, recognize and acknowledge an equivalency between the people of Israel and the people of Palestine. And they're both of them share aspirations for peace and security. I also believe that Canada remains, and as you've articulated, been firmly committed to Israel's right to exist in peace and security. But we have also acknowledged and recognized that lasting peace requires a viable, stable Palestinian state that fully acknowledges Israel's inalienable right to security and peace. And so I think in the long term, you've spoken on this already, Mr. Levesque, at some length, but I'd ask perhaps, and you mentioned the UN Security Council resolution the Americans are bringing forward, and a number of significant next steps, but could you perhaps give us some insight on what Canada's role in supporting those multilateral efforts to stabilize the region, to prevent escalation, and to help secure that stable, viable peace and security that both Palestinian and Israeli people aspire to?
Thank you for the question and the opportunity to comment. I think, first of all, it is a recognized fact that this is one of the most protracted conflicts in the world. Some would say the longest lasting conflict that has ever been. I think it was important what you mentioned about there is no equivalency between the government of Israel, which is democratically elected, and a terrorist organization like Hamas, and I would never dispute that. But it is important to really zoom out and look at this from a much higher level, and look at what Canada has traditionally believed, fundamentally believed, which is that both these people deserve to live in peace and security. We have seen many efforts in the past, and we expend a lot of time and energy finding the voices inside Israel and inside Palestine for those that continue to seek this peaceful cohabitation. There's a lot of extremism. There's a lot of hate and a lot of mistrust right now. And it is part of what we see as our role to be the voice of reason that sees into the future and that tries to bring parties to the conflict where we believe their best interest will be served in the future. And enough voices exist in both Israel and Palestine to continue these efforts. Like I said before, Canada will and the department is working on options to provide to the ministers and Prime Minister on where we can be most helpful. We have areas of expertise. I mentioned demining before. I mentioned governance training and transfer of technical transfer of knowledge and democratic development, which means in this case the holding of elections in Palestine in a way that will legitimize future leadership for Palestinians. These are all areas that play to Canada's strength. It's not to say that we couldn't make a contribution elsewhere, but we each need to play to our strengths, and these are, in the first wave, the areas where we would consider making contributions, all, of course, subject to the level of ambition and decisions to be made by the Prime Minister and the Minister.
And thank you very much, Mr. Levesque. And if I may as well, I think the environment, as you said, has been a long and protracted and extremely complicated and difficult conflict for decades. But it's also occurring within a complicated environment in the neighborhood. And so I think Canada has some diplomatic relations with some of their neighbors, with Lebanon, with Jordan, with Egypt. And I wondered if you might speculate on how, through our diplomatic relationships, we might be able to continue to advance the cooperation of the regional partners.
Absolutely, and you're correct that nothing can be in the Middle East can be seen in isolation. We see the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the very center, the nucleus of what radiates throughout the region. When Palestinians suffer and are internally displaced or become refugees, they go to neighboring countries, which decreases stability for Jordan in particular, Lebanon in particular, and of course Egypt. So there's a reason why these countries are absolutely central to coming up with a plan for a lasting peace in the region, and there's a reason why they are the ones that are the most intimately involved, along with the United States at the negotiating table.
Thank you very much. We now have in the remaining time a lightning round of 3 minutes.
As I would love to say, it's rare that we get so many experts at one table, and we're very grateful for you all being here. The Minister of Public Safety has previously been asked about the number of people who are tracking down those with warrants, or the CBSA was asked about this. This bill is about securing our borders. It was revealed 2 weeks ago that there are 32,000 people at this time who are at large, as in we don't know where they are, we being the government and Canadians, who are ineligible to remain in Canada and are wanted for deportation. My question is this, and if you don't know, that's fine. I just would like to have that information provided. How many officers throughout Canada have it as their daily job to pursue these people?
I'll turn to my CBSA colleagues.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to take away the number for the exact details for your question, but there's about 1,000 officers that work in inland enforcement activities. So that's a combination of activities. So I'll have to undertake to get back to the committee with that exact number on the dedicated officers who are just doing the investigations component of your question.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Bush. Just to be clear, what I'm looking for is how many people on a daily basis, whether armed or unarmed, are going out and looking for those 32,000. That's what I'm looking for. So you don't need to, I think you have my point. Thank you. It's common ground, I believe, that the rail is a vulnerability for the border. That's something that we all can be aware of. To summarize, no rail traffic is searched coming into Canada. It's only searched once it reaches an inland port such as Montreal, Winnipeg, or potentially even Ashcroft in my riding of Kamloops, Thompson-Nicola. So I just want to confirm that this committee will be provided with the numbers of how many firearms are seized, have been seized, and just to confirm as well that no train is ever searched at the border itself, which means that from the time the border is crossed until the arrival at an inland terminal, that train is essentially unmonitored. Can we agree on that?
I would just provide one sort of small clarification or precision to the way you've sort of framed out the search authorities, or not the search authorities, the search of the trains. Goods coming into Canada are all subject to a risk assessment. So there's advanced commercial information that's provided about what's on those trains. It's that information that's used by our targeters in the intelligence and enforcement branch of CBSA that will then use that to be able to screen through the cars to determine which ones are at risk. So before any train car does come into Canada, there is a security assessment of the goods that they're carrying. So that's identified in advance. But other than that, you are correct in the sense that those goods then pass the border and travel freely to inland rail port of entry, where they are then subject to examination and released accordingly.
The problem I see, Mr. Hamilton, is this. High-level traffickers are very well aware of CBSA's risk assessments. I think anybody who operates in this area nefariously knows exactly what is being looked for and accordingly alters their activity. So one thing I would be very interested in is how many random searches have been conducted, perhaps in the last year, if we could have that information, please. Last thing, and I just have about 40 seconds on this. Just to confirm, when it comes to the Coast Guard traditionally wasn't under the purview of national defense. Is that correct? But it is now going to be shifted to national defense in order for our numbers on defense spending will now contemplate the Coast Guard where they didn't before. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, that is accurate.
That is correct. Thank you. Because let's be real, the Coast Guard doesn't engage with enemies. If there is a nefarious if there is an invasion or anything like that, they would retreat. So they are not defense personnel, just to be clear.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
We remain a civilian organization reporting to the Minister of National Defense through the Deputy Minister. We are not part of the Canadian Armed Forces. We will not participate in the defense activities for Canada.
Mr. Chair, with that, I apologize for doing this, but I do have to move a motion at this point. It is with the clerk, and that motion states that given that during debate on the programming motion for Bill C-8, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety committed publicly that, quote, we'll have the Minister appear on two separate occasions, and, quote, the Minister of Public Safety appear at two separate meetings for the studies of Bill C-8 and C-12 for 1 hour each. That is the end of the motion. It's been provided to the clerk in both English and French. All the Conservatives are asking for is for the deal that was made and for what Mr. Ramsey confirmed in public, we would have two separate meetings. This shouldn't take long.
Sorry, this is a committee business motion which could be addressed at committee business time. We're now discussing C12 with important witnesses. So I take note of your intention to table that motion at some point, but that motion at this time is not tabled in the right opportunity. Ce qui m'amène à me tourner, et j'aurai des choses additionnelles à dire sur.
And I will have some additional things to say with respect to committee work a little bit later at the end of this hour. So, Mr. Caputo, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Well, it is directly related. We are discussing Bill C-12 here today, and this is a motion related to Bill C-12. So, or sorry, C-8 and C-12. It is actually related to both because there was supposed to be an hour for each. We had somebody say something. This should be common knowledge because we all agreed on this. If that is the chair's ruling, I would move to challenge the chair's ruling on that. Thank you.
So this is a C12 meeting. Madame Dandurand.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have witnesses here to talk about C12. This is a public meeting, so I'd like to take advantage of the time that we have with the witnesses to discuss C12 and that we adjourn the debate on this motion, which pertains to another bill, so that we can really take full advantage of the appearance of the witnesses who have taken the trouble to come here. So, Member Caputo has the right to challenge my ruling or vote on it. Are members in favor of this challenge to my ruling?
Les députés qui sont contre.
Those against? So we will now go back to the debate with 6 minutes for Member Assassi. MP Al.
Thank you. Now, first of all, I want to thank your presence today to share your information and your expertise. But I also...
No jokes, Chris Murray. Wipe on, wash off. No jokes. Like, this is how it goes sometimes. Some of the conservatives have challenges in there.
I want to thank your frontline staff for doing the best they can to secure the safety of our borders. In one of the previous meetings, I asked for the information about the provincial breakdown of interception of fentanyl at the border. And now I got the information. Thank you for that. And it's shocking that British Columbia accounts for over 90% of all fentanyl seized in Canada. Now, also in the previous meeting, I asked for the prosecution, the numbers prosecution, that's happened in the past year. Now, I still haven't got that number. So again, can you provide me with the statistics about, how many of these seizures led to prosecutions? Or do you have the number for now?
Oh, I don't have that number on me. I don't think CBSA would either, so we can endeavor to get back to you on that.
Okay. Yes. And then to follow up on that, I want to ask, do you agree that merely seizures or interception of those illegal drugs at the border is not enough to deter this problem, or it's not enough to address the crisis of fentanyl coming to our country or flooding our community? So do you agree that this is just purely intercepting those illegal drugs is not enough?
Tackling the fentanyl crisis is a big priority right now for this government, as it is for other governments around the world. There are a variety of ways that we're doing it, including intercepting, as you said, at the border, but also trying to tackle other aspects of the fentanyl trade, including addressing money laundering challenges, and some of the amendments, for example, that are in Bill C-12 to ensure that precursor chemicals can be quickly quickly scheduled by the Minister of Health. So there's a number of ways that the government is trying to tackle the crisis, because it is not just about interceptions. That's part of the solution, but there are a lot of other pieces to the solution as well.
But do you agree that unless those interceptions would lead to certain consequences for the traffickers, if not, it's still not enough? If there's no consequence or deterrence for those traffickers, how good it is for this legislation?
I think you're right that prosecution is part of the solution as well, and so we can endeavor to get back to you with some of the figures on that.
Okay, and to follow up on that, do you agree that this bill fails to address the deliberate killing of Canadians by fentanyl traffickers?
This bill provides for a number of different provisions to help protect the borders, but also address the fentanyl crisis, including the provisions that we discussed earlier related to the scheduling of precursor chemicals. But in addition to the border bill, Bill C-12, there's also the border plan that provides additional investments and resources to CBSA, to the RCMP, and to other agencies to help add new personnel, new tools to be able to tackle the crisis. The government has announced, for example, an additional 1,000 RCMP officers, an additional 1,000 CBSA personnel that will also be helping to contribute to tackling this problem.
But do you agree that this is a failure in the bill itself, not to strengthen the deterrence for traffickers?
I would say that the bill does what it can to address the issues that require legislative gaps to be closed, complemented by the border plan.
You haven't answered my question.
Sorry?
You haven't answered my question, right? Do you agree that this is a failure of the bill not to address this deterrence issue?
I think the bill is addressing a number of really important, is closing a number of really important legislative gaps that exist, and will help to secure our borders and help us in the fight against fentanyl.
Okay. Now, can you commit that in the future there will be quarterly reporting of seizure, prosecution, and sentence outcome?
So I can take that back, Mr. Chair, as a question to the different departments that would be responsible for collecting that data. I'm not able here to respond on their behalf.
So at this stage, what is the coordination between different departments?
These were good questions. Unfortunately, the time is up.
For their testimony here today. Mr. Gordon, we had heard earlier testimony in this study that only 30% of women who begin apprenticeship programs complete them, compared to 45% of men. And that overall completion rates remain low across all the trades. So what are some of the main barriers that are preventing young people from entering or completing the apprenticeship program? And I do want to make note, you did talk about wraparound supports, and does that affect completion rate, and what are those looking like?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on that. Wraparound supports, we have maternal and paternal. The UA is the first union, construction union in Canada to put forward maternal and paternal benefits for our members. That's paid out of the UA to look after our members when they're going through pregnancy. We heard stories of women, and speaking specifically why the completion rates were less in the past, is that if you have, there's women that were hiding their pregnancy because they were afraid to be laid off. I mean, what a horrible experience to have to do that when you can, in other walks of life, take a maternal leave. These things were essential. Childcare is a massive one that we're trying to fight for and see implemented. Just opportunities to fix things. And again, the 30 and 45% markers you're giving do not reflect the UA. We're in the 90% or higher completion rate category for every trade we represent, women or men.
Okay, thank you. I will just make note that I did say that we got that stat from an earlier. So, but in no way am I saying that it is reflective of your organization.
I understand.
So another question that I have for you, Mr. Gordon, is regarding economic factors. So we know that our economy is declining. We're hearing that over and over again, especially within this study, which then would tell me if our economy is declining, our productivity is low, and there's just less opportunity for jobs. So we have economic factors like high taxes, complex regulations, rising business costs. Would you say that this can affect job creation and hiring in the skilled trades?
Investment affects job creation, whether it's public sector or private sector. So the massive influx of projected projects that are to take place in the coming future is really something we're happy to hear. We just want to see it actually come to fruition and be done. When we have major infrastructure, other projects follow. Private investment follows, and it's about opportunity. Yeah, sorry,
but I mean, we've seen so. My neck of the woods, I come from Saskatchewan. I border Alberta. We have a lot of energy and agriculture. Those are our driving economic drivers within Battleford's Lloydminster Meadow Lake. And we've seen private investment leave. I mean, even on a national scale, we've seen this. We've seen, energy companies. The regulations and the red tape that have been placed by this Liberal government has actually chased investment down south. So that would affect private investment, which ultimately, I mean, public investment is basically tax dollars. The government is taking that, whether it's through taxation on a provincial level, royalties, which then they are using to put into social services, whether that's our healthcare or education, or those wraparound supports that Mr. Binger was talking about that is needed to help people in different situations. So would you not agree that, private investment is better than having the public tax dollars investing in these projects?
I think we need to do both. I think one goes kind of hand in hand with the other in various capacities. And in the world that we live in the piping trades, we navigate according to various sectors, from low-rise residential sectors, housing, single-family dwellings, up to high-rise massive structures, commercials, institutional, all the above. And I could tell you that right now, look at private sector funding for high-rise buildings in the Toronto region is having a major decline. So again, that's going to affect jobs as well. Injecting funding through investment, be it private or public sector. If we're talking about the trades that we represent, our members can shift because their scope of practice covers the various sectors, and they can shift accordingly. And it's actually good for them because they get a broader range of the scope of their trade as far as the experience. If you're an apprentice,
thanks, Mr. Gordon. I guess my point is that if we keep taxing the private sector and they leave, we don't have public funds to put into investment. That's all. Thank you very much.
Mr. Binger. Mr. Janis?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll have questions for both witnesses, but related to a common theme, and that is early start in career planning. This is something I've talked a lot about, which is in an increasingly challenging economy, the various factors that I see as rooted in government policy leading to challenges for young people. Early career planning is more essential than ever, and it helps young people acquire skills earlier and get into the job market earlier. Mr. Gordon, one of the things that Conservatives have proposed as part of our last platform is direct federal support for vocational programs, in particular related to the trades, starting in high schools. And some people have said actually even earlier is important. What's your take on some of the current realities around that and what we can do more of to encourage earlier awareness of the trades and opportunities for people to try these things out in their teen years?
I think it would be, if this is the route that would happen, I think it can be valuable. I would stress safety at the forefront of all things to protect these youth, especially if you're looking at earlier ages than high school. I myself in elementary school participated. They used to have it back then. And I think it would be great to bring it back, but there was dangers associated with it, certainly. I would suggest this. The government could easily form a committee of professionals that have resource that could actually guide this process, give input to what those programs should be and what they should not be, so that we're not empowering people to become victims of the underground economy, working for unscrupulous employers that would put them to work with minor skills and not a full trade qualification and competency within their purview. So that would be my recommendation.
I think that's an interesting point, that this earlier education can promote trades awareness, safety, learning about what working in these areas are, but also acquaint people with some of the risks, some of the presence of unscrupulous practices that may exist in different places, and how to be on guard against them. Yeah, thank you for that. Mr. Binger, thank you for your testimony today. I wonder if you could share a little bit about some of the particular issues and challenges and things we can do to confront them around early career planning for young people that are in care. What can be done to help young people in those situations also be exposed to mentors and career opportunities that maybe they aren't being exposed to right now?
So I think that goes back to the privatization and the regulatory body requirement. A lot of the staff we have are very, very low experience, fresh out of a social work program, and these are the people working with kids with complex, multiple diagnoses a lot of the time. So I think better training for the staff, or at least having kind of a standardized training to help orient these kids towards them, and then that would also, with the privatization, I think, taking that out, so we don't have people that are solely running these homes for a profit incentive rather than the outcomes of youth. It's kind of, I know I'm kind of just dancing on the topic of youth employment, but a lot of these issues stem from a numerous amount of other systemic issues that have kind of led to care being the last place a kid should grow up, and it's constantly negative outcomes. So I think being able to increase their well-being and their outcomes while they're in care before they're even focusing on getting into an employment. And another one of the major issues with it is, I believe it's called Section 7, where it'll be classes in elementary school for youth with behavioral issues. And a lot of the kids from care are going in there and they're doing schoolwork, but they won't actually get a high school diploma out of it.
Thank you. Just real quick in the last second I have, Mr. Gordon, can you comment on the best place for young people who are doing early career planning to get information about what trades are in demand, what kinds of careers they could be pursuing? How would you advise a young person in terms of accessing that information?
Great question. CBTU, the Canadian Building Trades Unions, commissioned skill plan jointly funded with the federal government under UTIP to build a forum where they have guidance for introductory to all the trades that the building trades represent, and pathways, direct streamlines, and some guidance. It even has live mentorship that you can tap into to get information directly from people participating as professionals in these trades.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jen.
The witnesses for being here and joining.
Cramp Nyman, you have 6 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for being here today. Indeed, in your opening remarks, you mentioned that we're in a unique and critical moment. I'd like to preface my comments by reiterating that I think we are all here furiously advocating for peace between the State of Israel and the fundamentalist Islamist terrorist organization currently wreaking havoc in Gaza, as well as peace in the broader conflict between Israel and the recently recognized Palestinian state. Indeed, we believe a two-state solution with elected democratic bodies that respect the rights and freedoms of not just their own citizens, but especially each other's is absolutely paramount to achieve this. I do, however, have a couple questions on points of clarification on the government's decision to recognize Palestinian statehood at this particular juncture and around what that looks like from a Canadian perspective. To start, who does the Government of Canada recognize as the legitimate sovereign over the Gaza Strip, that being Area A, Area B, Area C, and East Jerusalem?
Thank you for the question and for the sentiments on the prospects for peace. I think the short answer to governance in Gaza is that it now suffers from an immense void. Hamas and its security forces, for lack of a better term, continue to control a portion of the Strip, and of course the Israeli Defense Forces occupy about the other half. There is very little governance, and the Government of Canada currently does not recognize Hamas as a legitimate governing authority. So the work
if I may, who does the Government of Canada then recognize as the capital of the Palestinian state?
That is also a question of disagreement and reflection. Canada has traditionally not pronounced itself on this, and the position of the government is that this is something that should be decided on through consultations and negotiations between Palestinians and Israelis in the future.
Thank you. So moving on to conditions attached to the actual statehood recognition. In the statement where the Prime Minister recognized Palestinian statehood, he wrote, "The Palestinian Authority has provided direct commitments to Canada and the international community on much-needed reforms, including to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026, in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state." So my first question is, what specific direct commitments to Canada did the Palestinian Authority give?
All of the above. These commitments were made in writing by the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. Commitments to elections, commitments to reforms on governance, commitments on education reform, and a variety of legal reforms in the Palestinian Authority.
And did these fundamental reforms include guarantees for continued suspension of the Palestinian Authority's Martyr Fund, including any direct or indirect alternatives or attempts to rebrand?
Yes, absolutely, both explicitly and in practice, as we have seen already a number of progress being made in the transformation of those funds to turn it into a more, let's just say, universally recognized process of welfare support for certain families.
Okay, so for clarity, can you confirm that the call by the Prime Minister for demilitarization is for the entire Palestinian state, including the Palestinian Authority and any militant groups operating in their territory?
That was the predicate on which the decision was made, and that is indeed what the Prime Minister is expecting.
Are you aware of, are any deadlines imposed on the demilitarization of Palestinian by the Palestinian led in exchange for statehood recognition?
Pardon me, can you repeat the beginning of the question?
Were there any deadlines imposed for the demilitarization?
No strict deadlines were imposed, no.
Okay. Was any assessment done on their ability to demilitarize?
I would say that this is going to be a work in progress and something that will happen over time. And the assessment is that it can be done if there's a general push by the international community to keep our collective attention on the situation in Palestine and the support, the reform programs and the support to governance in Palestine. As long as that is in place, then yes, the assessment is that it is possible.
Okay, so let's fast forward to January 1st of 2027. What happens if January 1st comes around, 2027, and open, fair, and free elections have not happened? Will Canada de-recognize Palestinian statehood if they do not hold open, fair, and free elections in 2026?
Excellent question. My understanding of the law and international law is that once a state is recognized, it cannot be unrecognized. This is a move, a decision that happens once, which means that after that, the government of Canada interacts with the government of Palestine as it would with any other country, which means that the levers at our disposal are as a country and as a diplomatic corps and foreign policy are the same as with any other country.
But the government...
we're out of time, Madam. Next is... we'll start the next round of questions, beginning with MP Cronis. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. This is an important topic of concern to my constituents, and I'm glad for the updates. I just have a quick couple of quick yes or no questions for Mr. Levesque, and then I have some questions for Ms. Netley about international law. Mr. Levesque, Canada has recognized a state of Palestine in furtherance of a two-state solution. Does GAC have a map of the state of Palestine?
Yes.
Yes? Is that map publicly available?
We don't produce our own maps at Global Affairs. We use publicly available maps.
Because I'd really like a map of what, if you could please, I'd be grateful if you could send the committee a map of the state of Palestine.
I can assure you that Global Affairs has no map that isn't publicly available. But if I understand what you're trying to get at is exactly where we see the precise boundaries of what a state of Palestine would be. And the answer to that is not a yes/no, but it's a short one, is it will be up to Palestinians and Israelis to negotiate final status issues on the return of refugees.
So there is no actual map that Canada is using at this point. We're waiting to find out where it heads in negotiations.
Canada is not the entity that decides on the delineation of the border between Israel and Palestine, correct?
Okay, so, and Ms. Netley, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you about Prime Minister Carney's statement that he would arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he came to Canada under the ICC arrest warrant. Is it Canada's position that the ICC has jurisdiction, that the ICC had jurisdiction to issue that arrest warrant?
Thank you for the question. It's Canada's position. We're a strong supporter of the International Criminal Court, as you know, and the role that it plays in the fight against impunity. We consider the court to be an independent court.
So is that a yes?
Its judiciary is independent, and its prosecutors independent.
So yes, it is GAC's position that arrest warrant is valid. Well, I want to ask you about the principle of complementarity, which is a jurisdictional principle that dictates that the ICC can...
Sorry to interrupt here, guys, but I'm going to. This is a piece I want to show, then we'll slip right into question period. This is something I want Canadians to see. This is how outrageous it gets even in committee. It's ridiculous.
To the question and answer segment. The first round is 6 minutes. That 6 minutes includes the question and answer. So I shall begin with the Conservatives, Mr. Major. 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Lake, you mentioned that internationally trained physicians could be tested on their competencies prior to their arrival. This is something that we've heard from internationally trained physicians who feel they became trapped in a broken system once they arrive into Canada. Can you explain how pre-arrival competency assessments could help prevent bottlenecks?
Definitely there are, do I have to press this? Definitely there are individuals, looking to, we provide navigation support. So one of the things that we often do recommend is that individuals consider doing some of the assessments they are able to do abroad before coming to Canada to speed up the process. So certainly that is one aspect. And then I think looking at the, what tools are needed to measure the competencies that are needed and align those with healthcare demands.
Thank you. Ms. Lake again. Do you believe Canada should implement a national license for healthcare professionals so that doctors can practice across provinces without barriers?
I think that eliminating the barriers for particularly the individuals that are here or anyone who is coming is definitely something that we would support.
Are you aware of any barriers, personal knowledge of barriers, people that you know that have challenged these barriers, and can you elaborate on those?
Just, even in my speech, we're limiting the access to the competition for people that are here by sort of making residence requirements or limiting their access to seats, or if there's a lack of bridging programs or whatnot where people can fill gaps where gaps are identified. So just having that lack of opportunity or being subjected to further limitations certainly creates barriers for people, and we have a lot of people that relocate to different provinces where there are opportunities. So for example, in Alberta, we have associate physician positions. We have one of the largest PRA programs for both specialists and family physicians. And of course, there's residency across Canada, but you have to be a resident of Alberta in order to apply for those seats.
Okay. Ms. Lake, would you support a national streamlined competency-based assessment for internationally trained doctors?
Yes, and I think that there is some work being taken right now, to increase competency-based assessments for physicians, and we would certainly support that. I think the issue is right now we have a battery of tests and assessments that people have to do before they're even considered or looked at, or they, like I said, they may not even be able to make it to the plate to be assessed. So I certainly think that there are improvements that we need to make to allow people a fair assessment of their skills upon arrival, and then determine at what scope they're able to practice and which assessments they would need to do to determine, to fulfill their competencies.
Ms. Lake, according to the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, there are currently over 13,000 internationally trained physicians in Canada who are not working as doctors. Do you think the government should prioritize licensing internationally trained physicians already in Canada before they start adding people to a bottleneck in a broken system?
I think that a lot of the changes that are made are benefiting those who are arriving, and I do think that there is a large number of people that we haven't utilized, that are underutilized and underemployed and aren't working to their potential. And I think any initiative that would support assessing those individuals for their competence and getting them into the health workforce would be of benefit to all.
Ms. Lake, do you believe that there's a disconnect between the immigration policy and healthcare planning in Canada?
I'm not an immigration policy expert. I think that there are certainly highly educated and highly skilled individuals coming, and I think that if there were the ability to have that information where people could land, where their skill sets are needed, and we can have better coordinated services between those demands and the individuals coming, that would be helpful.
I think there's lots of opportunity for that. Have you talked to any people that have immigrated or not in the system, and you have examples right in your own neighborhood or in your own community that you could think of this would actually help out tremendously and help out our system as well as far as serving Canadians?
Yeah, it would help thousands. I know during the pandemic, there were lots of people that were sitting on the sidelines wanting to help their fellow colleagues. And I think there are lots of people still sitting on the sidelines, like the gentleman that I had made reference to, who's working as an Uber driver and who was employed in Afghanistan working for the WHO. Who is simply looking for a job where he could provide public health information or vaccines.
Ms. Lake, how can practice-ready assessments help get internationally trained doctors licensed and working?
30 seconds.
I think that an increase in those seats, it's been a proven model for assessment, and so I think expanding upon practice readiness assessment opportunities and associate physician opportunities would be helpful in determining or in creating pathways to licensure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lake.
I now go to the Liberals. Ms. Chi for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Lake, for coming, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us this afternoon. My first question is to Ms. Lake. Just in your experience
you've talked about the processes and sometimes the frustration around it. Which part of the process would you think could be better aligned with, Medical Council of Canada and the provincial colleges to, streamline the process a little bit more?
Good question. I think that, I think there was some discussion on modernizing assessment processes. I know that there is a demand or a request to move to more competency-based assessments. Again, if we were able to align individuals' skills, like if we have a urologist, for example, who's able to work as a urologist. At the current time, specialists are having to do the qualifying exam part 1, which requires them to essentially go back and study all aspects of medicine when in fact that might not be the area of medicine or the scope of practice that they're eligible to work within. So it is slowing their process down to be assessed. So I think that is one thing, again, looking at what are the tools that we need in place to assess competencies and to ensure safety of practice. And I think that if we are able to assess individuals upon arrival, for their competencies and then looking at their skills and training. The other aspect is that for regulatory, for CARMS, there's a lot of processes that could be changed there. Individuals who are having to apply to CARMS on it.
All right, gang, we're going to slip over to question period. It's a little early, but we've got an interesting person making an interesting statement, so we're going to check that out. Let's get this up and going. We've got our guy, Mike Barrett, he's a stud. I like Mike Barrett. Let's take a peek.
Read a link. This year, the Silver Cross mother is Nancy Payne from Lansdowne, Ontario. On Remembrance Day, Nancy will lay a wreath at the National War Memorial in our nation's capital, representing the mothers and families who have lost a daughter or son in military service to Canada. Her son, Corporal Randy Payne, served proudly with the Canadian military as a police officer. He was killed in action on April 22nd, 2006, while serving in close protection in Afghanistan. Through Nancy, we honor not only Randy's sacrifice, but the legacy of all who have served and fallen in defense of Canada. The fallen and their families have given so much to our country, and we are forever in their debt. As the Silver Cross mother, Nancy Payne carries the weight of the personal loss of her son, Randy, and the grief of so many Canadian families who have lost their loved ones in service of freedom and Canadian values. We can't forget that. We must never forget them. We will remember them.
The Honourable Member for Brampton South.
Canadians from coast to coast join Sikh communities in commemorating the 556th anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. It is birth anniversary, the first Guru and founder of Sikhism. Mr. Speaker, today we reflect on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's timeless teachings, Naam Japna, meditation, Kirt Karni, honest living, and One Ke Chakna, sharing with others. These principles are not only central to Sikhism, but they also resonate strongly with Canadian values. Guru Nanak Dev Ji defended equality and justice, advocating for the rights of women, a message that continues to reflect the values and uphold in Canada today. Mr. Speaker, these teachings are lived every day by Sikh Canadians whose contribution continue to enrich our country. Mr. Speaker, may the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji continue to inspire us all. Happy Gurpurab to everyone who celebrates.
The Honourable Member for St. John, St. Croix.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach Remembrance Day, I rise to pay tribute to retired Master Warrant Officer Earl Eastman, who sadly passed away this year. Earl served 33 years in the Canadian Armed Forces and completed 3 tours on 3 continents. After returning from Afghanistan, he dedicated himself to serving veterans as President of the Canadian Army Veterans Motorcycle Unit, 2nd VP of the Legion's New Brunswick Command, and Knight Commander of the Order of St. George. In 2022, Earl's public service continued when he was elected to St. Stephen's Municipal Council. Earl was a dedicated member of our community, but most of all, was a loving husband to Charlie, father, grandfather, and my friend. May Earl Eastman rest in peace.
L'honorable député de Laval-les-Îles.
The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, I am taking this opportunity to recognize the extraordinary work of Mrs. Linda Delisle in my constituency of Laval-les-Îles. Life is like a river, with many sailors and leaders, but there are also plenty of people who are adrift. Sometimes we come across individuals with pure hearts who are like rafts that we can cling to. Mrs. Delisle is one such person. Since 2015, under her leadership, Manoir du Ruisseau has become a warm and welcoming place to live, where every resident is treated with respect, empathy, and kindness. She has fostered a culture of compassion and dignity, ensuring that seniors receive the care that they deserve. With her compassionate leadership style, she has put together a dedicated team that makes Manoir du Ruisseau an example of excellence. The Manoir team doesn't just view caring for seniors as an administrative task. For them, it's an honor to serve our nation's builders. Mrs. Delisle, on behalf of all Canadians, all Quebecers, and all residents at Laval, thank you, and thank you so much to the whole team.
Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lifelong Conservative and friend, Vic Brandle was born in 1933 in Jeffrey, Alberta, and passed away peacefully at the age of 91 in Vernon, BC. Vic quit school during the Depression to work on the neighbor's farm until he went to work in Edmonton in 1950. By the age of 19, Vic had worked at a gas station, a drilling rig, and on a barge moving freight from Yellowknife, just to name a few. He started V.E. Brandle Oilfield Construction in 1961 when he bought his first D7 dozer and grew the company to 100 pieces of heavy-duty equipment. Vic served on our local Reform Party, Canadian Alliance, and Conservative Party boards, finishing as our Director Emeritus. Over the years, Vic became a good friend, often stopping by for a coffee to talk politics and current events. Vic was husband to his beloved Edith, dad to Kevin, Barry, and Ron, father-in-law to Marnie and Larissa, grandpa to Noah, Nikita, and Eva, and brother to Roger, Bob, and Jim. Thanks, Vic, for everything you have done for our riding, for our community, and for our country. You will be missed, Vic.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpurab, an important celebration for Sikh Canadians. Today marks the birth of the founder of Sikhism, a spiritual leader who continues to guide millions of Canadians across the world. Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught us that there is one creator and that all human beings are equal. He emphasized the importance of living with honesty, integrity, and a spirit of seva. He called on us to earn an honest living, Girt Karo, share what we have, Vand Shako, and remember the divine in all that we do, Nam Japo. Through these acts of faith and service, Sikhs reaffirm the core principles of Sikhism: devotion, humility, and compassion. We are reminded of our duty to serve humanity and respect the sacred gift of life that we are blessed with. As we honor this day, let us reflect on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's timeless message of inclusion, kindness, and service, values that continue to strengthen Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, for decades in Canada, Conservative and Liberal governments alike have been steadfast leaders in the global fight to end polio. Partners include Global Citizen, Results, and the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health. But the undisputed leader in this mission is Rotary International, where there is no bigger champion than Canada's own Jennifer Jones, their first woman international president just a few years ago. Rotary's vision statement says, "Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves." Canadian Rotarians and Rotaractors live this out every single day. Whether building playgrounds and spray parks in their local communities or eradicating polio worldwide, these friends and neighbors stand shoulder to shoulder, roll up their sleeves, and just do the work. Today we are closer than ever to ending polio once and for all. Working together, we will win. And along the way, every one of us will be individually better for having taken part in the fight.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to pay tribute to not one but two of my predecessors, both of whom, by pure coincidence, announced their retirement from professional life at about the same time. Yvan Loubier represented the riding of Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot from 1993 to 2007. He was the first ever Bloc Québécois MP in the region after the creation of the Bloc Québécois. He was widely regarded as an experienced and competent parliamentarian. After his departure, Ève-Marie Taille-Tillac took over in the 2007 by-election. She remained the Member of Parliament for the riding until 2011. She is known for her local involvement, her presence, and for being close to the people. I am very fortunate to personally know these two dedicated individuals who are also independentists with steadfast convictions. It is a true privilege to know them. Yvan and Ève-Marie, your retirement is well-deserved. Thank you for everything you've done for our region and for the country of Quebec. We will remember your contributions.
For Fleetwood Port Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address a matter of grave concern, public safety in Surrey. Residents are deeply worried about their safety and the security of their livelihood. 74 cases of extortion are currently under investigation. These are not just statistics, they are families, entrepreneurs, and neighborhoods living in fear. With Bill C-14, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to work together across all levels of government to restore safety, confidence, and peace of mind. I want the people of Fleetwood Port to know that their voices are being heard, and our government remains firmly committed to ensuring justice and safety for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Food Banks Canada has given this Liberal government an F when it comes to poverty and food security. With Canadians paying over $800 more for food this year than they did last, it's no wonder food banks usage has skyrocketed across the country. The hidden Liberal industrial carbon taxes on fertilizer and farm equipment, along with the so-called clean fuel standard, keep on increasing the cost of food for Canadians due to the need to transport all our food. This has become so unsustainable that more families are going hungry every day. This Liberal government decided to announce a deficit of $78 billion, which will continue to drive up the cost of food in Yellowhead and across the country. Every hour this budget adds $10 million to our national debt, which means $5,400 in inflationary spending per household. Imagine the impact of $5,400 would have on Canadian families. It's time for Liberals to scrap the hidden food taxes so Canadians decide how they want to spend their own money.
That's right. Here, here. The Honourable Member for Milton East, Halton Hills South.
November is Women Abuse Prevention Month. 1 in 4 women in Canada report experiencing intimate partner violence in their lifetime, and alarmingly, those numbers continue to rise. In my community of Milton East, Halton Hills South, Halton Women's Place provides critical shelter, counselling, and support for women experiencing domestic violence. Last weekend, I joined their annual Hope in Every Step walk, an event that raises funds and sends a clear message of solidarity and hope to every woman seeking safety and support. It was deeply inspiring to see survivors, families, advocates, and volunteers, and many young men who came with their local sports teams. The Burlington Cougars, Iroquois Ridge Football, the Milton Menace, and the U15 jump basketball team led by Milton's own Raheem the Dream Chaudhry, who has been walking in this event since he was just 7 years old. Their participation is a reminder that ending gender-based violence requires all of us to stand together, challenge harmful attitudes, and foster a culture of respect, equality, and safety.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, Private Member's Bill C-291 passed with unanimous support in the last Parliament to replace the term child pornography in our laws with what it really is, child sexual abuse and exploitation material. Right. Sexual abuse and exploitation of children are some of the most horrendous crimes, and viewing child sexual abuse and exploitation material represents re-victimization of victims traumatized for life. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that 2 men who had possession of hundreds of images and videos of children as young as 3 years old could not be imprisoned for a mandatory 1-year term. For the prolonged period, these 2 possessed hundreds of images and videos produced by torturing innocent children. But the court applied imaginary scenarios rather than the facts in issuing this disgusting ruling. I urge the government to do the right thing, stand with children and victims of child sexual abuse and exploitation material, and invoke the notwithstanding clause.
Hear, hear!
The honourable member for Pontiac, Kitigan, Zibi.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Private Basil alias Ojik of Maniwaki, son of William Ojik and Catherine Riel. He served with courage and dignity during the Second World War, giving his life to service to Canada on August 28, 1944, during the Battle of Normandy. His name is commemorated in the Second World War Book of Remembrance, alongside that of his brother, Private Robert Simon Ojik, who also made the ultimate sacrifice while serving the Royal Regiment of Canada. Mr. Speaker, today let's honor the sacrifice of the Ojik family and their bravery, and of all soldiers from Pontiac, Kitigan, Zibi who served and continue to serve for peace and freedom.
Honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, this fall my office surveyed Southern Alberta residents about their priorities and expectations for this federal budget. An overwhelming 76% of respondents indicated the cost of living is their top concern, and 80% of business owners said the rising costs were hurting their operations. Interestingly, 88% did not believe that Canada's economic situation would improve in the next year, and sadly, they're correct. The Prime Minister's spend less promise has been shattered with an $80 billion budget deficit this year alone, the highest ever in Canadian history outside of COVID. This year's interest on the national debt will be a staggering $55.6 billion, even more than our health transfers. This budget is adding $10 million to our debt every hour, which equals approximately $33,000 for every Canadian and climbing rapidly. The Liberals need to realize that every dollar they spend comes out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians. My voters are demanding the Liberals stop the reckless spending that's driving up the cost of everything.
Here, here, great. Here, here.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, this week we are joined by over 80 outstanding educators from across Canada who are taking part in the Teachers Institute on Canadian parliamentary democracy, many of whom are here today. As a former educator, I know how deeply teachers shape the minds and values of the next generation. Though I now serve in this chamber, I will always see myself as a lifelong learner, a lesson taught to me by many dedicated colleagues over the years. I'm especially proud to recognize my former colleague Darcy Moore from Forest Heights Community School, who's one of the lead organizers for this incredible program. To the teachers here today and to those in classrooms from coast to coast to coast, thank you for the work you do each and every day that inspires, challenges, and empowers the next generation of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, to all the educators, welcome to Parliament Hill. Thank you for the difference you make in the lives of young Canadians every single day.
Bravo.
Let's go. Pierre looks like he's in the batter's box.
Oral questions.
Here we go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Never in
Always
history has a
French.
budget ever forced Canadians to pay so much for so little. Every dollar that the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. He has broken his promises. He promised to spend less. He's spending $90 billion more net. That's $5,400 per family. He doubled the deficit of the Trudeau government, and he has added more debt than in any other year other than COVID years. Why is he doing this when Canadians cannot pay their bills? He's forcing them to pay even more. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a solid budgetary position. It is the second lowest deficit in the G7. It has the lowest net debt in the G7 and a budget that invests in Canada because we believe in Canada here. This Prime Minister is becoming the most expensive Prime Minister in the history of our country. In fact, it is bankers who are profiting, and Canadians will have to pay $55 billion on the interest of the national debt, and that is more than we are spending on health transfers, and it is more than the government gets from the GST. Every cent that Canadians pay in sales tax is not going to doctors and nurses, it's going to bankers. Why did the Prime Minister send healthcare money to bankers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the debt burden right now is lower than it was when the government was conservative, and that is true. It's lower than when the Conservative government was in power. Second, we are investing in Canada, and we are protecting healthcare transfers and money for education and for social programs sent to provinces.
Never before have Canadians had to spend so much to get so little. This budget, with its record deficit outside of COVID, is a deficit twice as the size of the one Trudeau left behind, and $16 billion bigger than the Prime Minister promised. It has, in this spending, $5,400 of extra costs for every family in more expensive government. While Canadians are already unable to eat, heat, and house themselves, why is this Prime Minister's costly budget making them pay even more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget has 75% of the measures are for our sovereignty, to protect our borders, to protect our communities, to protect our way of life. And the balance is for affordability, a middle-class tax cut that the member opposite missed because he was not here. Mr. Speaker, this budget invests in Canada at twice the rate as any budget during this millennium. We believe in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It is twice as expensive as any other budget, and it makes generational debt. And speaking of sovereignty, what about food sovereignty, Mr. Speaker? The Prime Minister's budget increases taxes on food production, with the industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, storage bins, and food processing plants. Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's food professor, says that it is arguably the most damaging aspect of the Liberal carbon tax. It is a tax across the supply chain that undermines the competitiveness of our agri-food sector. Why is the Prime Minister threatening our food sovereignty and driving up our food prices?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the spring, this government removed the divisive consumer carbon tax, and that has a consequence. That has a consequence for any business, any farm that emits less than 50 kilotons, which is every farm across this country. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Climate Institute has done the analysis, and the impact of the industrial carbon tax on inflation is zero.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Apparently Unfortunately, the Prime Minister is still under the misconception that Canadians don't use steel. You remember that interview when he told CTV, he asked the CTV interviewer, "You don't use steel, do you, Steve?" Well, of course, farmers use steel in order to produce their food, in order to store their grains. Processors use steel in the apparatuses of their conveyor belts. The tax on fertilizer and equipment drives up the cost of food, not according to Conservatives, but according to Sylvain Charlebois. So is the Prime Minister going to tell Canadians that an industrial carbon tax on Canadian farmers is not driving up the price of...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices in Canada is approximately zero.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Still thinks we use zero steel, Mr. Speaker. But on another subject, unfortunately,
Carney's an idiot.
Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that a 1-year prison sentence was too much for possession of child abuse and exploitation materials. That sentence was already far too low for the two dirtbags who had literally hundreds of impressions and videos of children being tortured. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, invoke the notwithstanding clause in order to put the rights of children ahead of the rights of those who abuse them?
The right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I join all members of this House in condemning the exploitation of children as the most reprehensible source of crime. Mr. Speaker, that is why this government will be bringing forth legislation to combat these crimes, to penalize those who are responsible. That works within our Constitution.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, you are well known for your financial knowledge, and in theory, the Prime Minister is known for that too. But let's be serious. Let us not try to fool people. Let us ask the Prime Minister to ask why tax credits for oil companies, the organization of FIFA, or health transfers are assets for the government.
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important aspects of the budget is the tax credits for investment into clean electricity. That represents $4 billion for Quebec for investments there. That is one of the main reasons to support this budget. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I don't expect the Prime Minister to want to answer my question. A tax credit. You are paying money to someone who gets the benefit of that credit. It comes out of government coffers. You cannot say that it is an investment, the value of which you are keeping with on your asset sheet. Does the Prime Minister think that accountants are idiots and that Canadians are idiots as well? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to underline that Hydro-Quebec will be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this budget, and the environment will be the other big beneficiary. With it, when it comes to carbon capture, the truth is that right now, Quebec is using 350,000 barrels of oil a day. So carbon has to be captured for the production and transport of those barrels. The member
He's
for
so
Belleuil-Chambly.
arrogant. It's gross.
It seems that there's embarrassment in the air, Mr. Speaker. So that's wonderful if money is going into good projects, and yes, this has been decided that it is good, but it is an expenditure. It's really the Prime Minister must recognize that his budget is an austerity budget so that he can fund oil companies at Quebec's expense. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this budget is an investment budget. It's a budget for generational investment. The pace of investment is twice as quick, and this budget is going to stimulate $1 trillion worth of investment by the end of the decade. It's a growth budget for Quebec, for Canada.
In addition to cooking the books, the Prime Minister also rigged his GST rebate on housing to make sure that 95% of home buyers would not qualify for any break at all. Zero, zip, zilch. And the Prime Minister, meanwhile, puts a new rising tax on steel, aluminum, glass, cement, concrete, all the things that go into making a home. In other words, the industrial carbon tax is a housing tax. With Liberals already having doubled housing costs, will the Prime Minister axe the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader persists and doubles down on these fake imaginary taxes that exist only in his head and on the talking points that he hands out. What I will tell you is this is a budget where conservative-minded voters, people who think of voting conservative in elections, you know what they like about it? They like the hope. They like the ambition. They like the economic growth. They like bringing this country together from coast to coast to coast to invest in our potential, to invest in our young people, and to grow this country to be the best in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That's what they like.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget. Does that mean the budget is a fictional document? Here it is on page 106, strengthening the industrial.
Come on, get the show on the road.
The honourable member may continue now that the prop has been put away.
Mr. Speaker, they say their budget is a prop and its contents are imaginary. We're in real trouble. Homes take steel, they take aluminum, they take concrete and cement and glass. The industrial carbon tax drives all those things up. With our youth unable to afford homes, why don't they get rid of this tax so that we can bring down the cost of housing?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, you know what this budget does? It builds communities. It builds opportunities for young people in our communities. It ties this country together in a common refrain of hope and optimism and investing in ourselves. We're going to be investing in new homes. We're going to be investing in housing for young people. We're going to build it with that Canadian steel. We're going to build it with that Canadian lumber. We're going to build it with that best thing that we have, that Canadian ingenuity that exists in the youngest and the oldest, the skilled tradespeople of this country. We are going to build Canada. Conservatives like that, Liberals like that. Let's build the country together.
He's a trash fearmonger. Steve McKinnon's a monster.
After the Prime Minister's depressing speech demanding young people make more sacrifices, I think the Liberal House Leader asked ChatGPT to write him up a little poem about how he could inject hope into his message. It didn't work, Mr. Speaker. Young people need houses for them to have hope. Houses are needed to raise families. Houses are needed to build equity and collateral and credit history. But the Prime Minister insists on applying an escalating industrial carbon tax that will raise the cost of everything that goes into making a home. So with the Liberals doubling housing costs already, why won't they get rid of this tax?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know housing is top of mind for young Canadians, and we have heard them loud and clear. Budget 2025 delivers on affordable housing for young Canadians. It focuses on affordable housing and co-ops. It delivers on GST for first-time homebuyers, up to 47,000 homes that will see a big reduction in GST. Building all of these homes creates jobs for young people in the trades, great jobs for young Canadians. This budget delivers affordability for young Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has doubled lineups at food banks to well over 2 million people. And right now, food prices are rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States, which means it can't be some global or foreign factor on which we blame those rising costs. But Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's leading food price expert, says the industrial carbon tax, which is not only still in place but is rising quickly in this costly budget, is partly to blame. So single mothers, small businesses, and seniors can feed themselves while they get rid of this terrible tax on food.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
As a former single mother myself, I can tell you the kinds of things that single mothers, in fact families, are looking for.
Why would Patty Hadu ever be single? Imagine. Ugh. Gross woman.
Is affordability that's in this budget. Whether it's a middle-class tax cut for 22 million Canadians, whether it's protecting $10 a day childcare, by the way, a game changer for women, especially single mothers, but whether it's making the school food program permanent, whether it's investing in building trades, the kinds of infrastructure investments that will lead to good-paying jobs. We're here for young people, Canadians.
Patty Hadu is a whore.
Since they started promising that program, the number of children lined up at food banks has doubled to 700,000. And food prices are actually rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States of America. The questions I've been asking are to the Prime Minister. Apparently he doesn't have time to answer questions about homes and food when Canadians cannot afford to feed and lodge themselves. So once again, will the Prime Minister get rid of his regressive industrial carbon tax on Canadian foods so that single mums and seniors can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians don't have time for the kind of antics that the Conservative Party performs every single day. What Canadians want is investment in their families, investment in their children, investment in the kinds of infrastructure in small communities all across this country, including in my riding, that are going to make life affordable, that are going to build up the kind of infrastructure that allows for us to get ahead. And Mr. Speaker, lots of Conservatives feel that way in my riding. They told me so, and they've donated.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of deficits of less than 1% of GDP. This budget doubles those deficits, averaging 2% of GDP. The last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of declining debt to GDP. This budget increases debt to GDP. Will the government admit that its fiscal anchor is weaker than the previous Trudeau government's?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Speaker, I know they're having a bad week over there, but yesterday we tabled an historic budget to build our economy. For Canadians, by Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. We will spend less on wasteful spending so we can invest in our country and build our country, our economy, into the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, from Canadians from coast to coast to coast support our budget. It's time for us to come together in this House like Canada. Time for the party opposite to support our budget.
The Honourable Member for Wellington.
So that little clown, Wayne Long, is from New Brunswick, and he was born upside down and sideways and backwards, which would explain his weird build. Wayne Long is a pain in my mind. What a gross...
Halton Hills North.
MP.
Mr. Speaker, last
Disgusting.
July, bond rating agency Fitch warned that a material rise in the debt to GDP and a material rise in our deficit could lead to a credit downgrade. This budget doubles deficits and leads to ever-increasing debt to GDP. Will the government acknowledge that it is putting this country's credit rating at risk, not only to mention that it's saddling younger Canadians with a mountain of national debt?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of young Canadians are looking at this budget for generational opportunities. We are unlocking new markets for them. Budget 2025, we're getting young Canadians, young entrepreneurs ready to get export ready through our SMA readiness program. Secondly, once they're export ready, we will launch the Can Export program to support them, attend trade shows globally to showcase their goods. And once they have orders ready to go out, EDC will step in to support them to get into new markets around the world. This is how we're helping young Canadians and young entrepreneurs access new markets and create jobs here at home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of talk about a generational deficit of $78 billion in the budget, and it's true. What are the main points of this budget? The defense is the main priority, and the end to the struggle against climate change is done. There's even more credits for oil companies. These are all choices that Stephen Harper would have made because they are conservative choices. It's so conservative, in fact, that a conservative member became liberal. So we have a liberal deficit with conservative priorities, and through it all, why is there nothing for the priorities of Quebecers? The Honourable Member of Industry, the Minister of Industry. I know my colleague very well, and I know his writing very well, and there's something that is clear, and that is in his writing, when you talk about expenditures and on defense, that has an impact in Mirabel, that has an impact at CAE, and for Airbus, for Pedro-Dextron as well. It's going to have an impact on thousands of jobs in Mirabel, and my colleague right now is saying that this budget is not delivering anything for Quebec and for Mirabel. I think maybe he's disconnected from reality. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, a deficit of $78 billion will have impact on the coming generations in my writing, but there's worse than that. The Liberals are creating this deficit, and they're announcing cuts to health transfers, and they're not investing anything for seniors. And they're refusing a preferential rate for the first-time home buyers, and they're replacing the only housing building program that works in Quebec by Build Homes Canada, which is going to slow everything down, Mr. Speaker. How is it possible to create a deficit of $78 billion and by giving up on all of Quebecers' needs? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we were asked to invest more to build hospitals. We said, what did we say? Yes, excellent idea. We'll put it in the budget. And you can read. He could read the pages in the budget, and he'd see it there in black and white. Quebecers said, we want you to protect our language and culture. We want you to invest in that because it's important to us. The Minister of Finance and the Minister of Culture, Quebec and Canadian Culture, promised to invest more than ever in art and cultures. So when did you vote for this member?
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, 6 cents of every dollar was used to pay interest on the national debt. Yesterday's budget confirms that that number will more than double to 13 cents of every dollar. Wow. That's almost $76 billion going to bankers and bondholders to pay interest on the national debt. That's even more than the government will receive from taxing and GST. This, when the finance minister says he's making generational investments, is he just saddling the next generation with his unaffordable budget?
Here. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite simply is overlooking that Canada has a AAA credit rating, right, the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, has been world acclaimed in terms of a home for direct foreign investment, top of the G20 there, Mr. Speaker. The difference between that side of the House and this side of the House is that we believe in Canada. We believe in Canadians. We're diversifying supply chains, and we're investing in our population so that we become the strongest economy in the G7, we ask them to join us.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
The difference is that every Liberal finance minister seems to keep breaking their fiscal promises. They said the deficits would be low and temporary. They were long and very large. They said the deficit would be capped. They said the debt to GDP ratio would continue going down. The ratio went up and the deficits blew through the cap. Now we have a new finance minister with a new, weaker fiscal anchor. Will the finance minister confirm that this anchor is weaker, and how long before he breaks his promise too?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we are a nation of builders. We're building it for young people. We have the best net to GDP ratio in the G7. We are building affordable homes. We're investing in trades and hospitals. We're creating 100,000 new summer jobs. We are investing in entrepreneurs. Why, Mr. Speaker? This is a budget of resilience. This is a budget of strength. This is a budget of hope. Why don't the Conservatives join us and build Canada strong?
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just delivered one of the most expensive budgets in Canadian history. He promised fiscal responsibility during the last election, but Canadians got a staggering $80 billion deficit instead. That's $80 billion in new debt that will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything that Canadians buy. After hearing all this talk about change, Canadians are left wondering one thing. How is this Prime Minister's out-of-control spending any different than Justin Trudeau's?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Canadians across this country empowered us in the last election, and now we're empowering them in Budget 2025. A budget that will make generational investments to create the strongest economy in the G7. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building major infrastructure, homes, and industries. We're protecting our communities, borders, and way of life. And we're empowering Canadians with better careers, strong public services, and more affordable life. We know a strong country can be even stronger, but it takes vision and leadership. It's too bad the Conservatives have neither.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Is it just me, or does anybody else find that Turnbull is probably the stupidest, like the lowest IQ of all of the MPs? He looks like a short bus type of guy. Like, he literally looks like he's got an extra chromosome.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister isn't investing. He's spending on the backs of future generations. In fact, because of his reckless spending spree, Canadians will be paying over $55 billion a year in interest alone to service the debt. That's more money spent on interest payments than on health care transfers to help patients. Does the Prime Minister realize that his spending is lining the pockets of his banker and bondholder friends instead of funding our doctors and nurses?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister doesn't only have a vision for what this country is now, but what it is going to be. That's why he has assigned multiple ministries to work on transforming healthcare in those critical spaces in the north, spaces that always lacked investment on this side of the House, spaces that never seen the light of day with having support on this side of the House. We're inviting them to finally come into those spaces, support Indigenous people with those critical services. It is something that we know all voters are asking for.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lot-Binière. A costly budget that will make life even more costly for Canadian families. With the budget he tabled yesterday, the Prime Minister will go down in history as the biggest spender in Canadian history. Almost $80 billion in deficits. He promised to spend less, but he's spending $90 billion more. That's $5,400 per family, Mr. Speaker. And you know what? All that money comes straight out of Canadians' pockets. Why has the Prime Minister chosen to drive up the cost of food even further with the most inflationary budget in our history? The Honourable Minister. Canada has a AAA credit rating. and the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. That's our fiscal position. But what's in the budget? We're doubling housing. We're investing in infrastructure. We're raising the salaries of our CAF members higher. It's unprecedented. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. That's what's in the budget, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud of it.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Speaker, my riding of Halifax is home to a thriving defence sector with more than 10,000 Canadian Armed Forces members. I know that many of my constituents, including those in uniform, watched yesterday as the Minister of Finance tabled Budget 2025. Can the Minister of National Defence speak to the new defence investments Canada is making?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, through Budget 2025, we're investing over $81 billion over the next 5 years to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in our Canadian Armed Forces. This is a generational investment in defence infrastructure, in capabilities, in training, and of course, in our incredible personnel. From Halifax to Latvia, Mr. Speaker, when the brave men and women of the CAF answer the call to serve, they know we've got their backs, and they know it's time to build Canada strong.
The honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Costly budget of broken promises is a disastrous attempt to put out the fire they started. Not only is the Prime Minister fueling inflation with the largest regular budget deficit in Canadian history, he's also hiking up the industrial carbon tax, driving up food prices. Families are already struggling to afford food, housing, and everything else. So why does this Prime Minister want to raise the industrial carbon tax and make life even harder for Canadians?
Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, we're creating opportunities for Canadians. Budget 2025 is about building Canada, creating opportunities for young people. We're building St. John's strong, Etobicoke strong, Vancouver strong, Halifax strong, Fredericton strong, Winnipeg strong, Bradford strong, Mr. Speaker, city by city, community by community, for our young people, for Canadians. Through Budget 2025, we're building roads, bridges, hospitals, water systems, community centres, homes that Canadians need, major projects in the national interest, Mr. Speaker. We're doing it with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, and Canadian union workers at
the honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Is in this mess because of 10 years of Liberal deficits and taxes. Now this costly budget will make things worse by adding $10 million to our debt every hour. It's like cranking up the furnace and leaving the windows open, Mr. Speaker. Canada is the only G7 country where food inflation has gone up 4 months in a row. And by increasing the industrial carbon tax and driving up inflation, this budget will only raise prices higher. Why is this Prime Minister so intent on making life unaffordable for Canadian families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Speaker. I ask the Conservatives to join the rest of the country and love our country.
This guy is always drunk. Like, Blanchet, you're trash. Just admit it. Stop going in front of the camera. Like, when you're so screwed up on the House of Commons floor. Come on.
Canada, Mr. Speaker. They always seem to call Canada down. On this side of the Assembly, we are marketing Canada, something you guys should do. On this side of the aisle, we are defending Canada, Mr. Speaker, something that you guys should do as well. At the end of the day, we're building, you're tearing down Canada. Shame on you. Let's get on the same page. Canadians deserve that, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's costly budget is full of broken promises and is the most expensive in Canadian history. It has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. It will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. Liberals had a chance to lower food costs for Canadians, but they chose to make food more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax, driving the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Little troll.
They will be voting against food in schools for children.
What's wrong with this woman?
Voting against an income tax cut for Canadians. Voting against $75 million in apprenticeship training. Voting against a refundable tax credit for personal support workers. Voting against $45 million in funding to address violence against women. And voting against crucial supports for seniors like old age security. Canadians want to know, who are these Conservatives fighting for? Because it certainly isn't them.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
We're going to be voting against adding an additional $300 billion in debt for our future generations. Said the food wholesale prices have increased in Canada versus the U.S. and that the one factor driving this is the industrial carbon tax. He also said that he's deeply concerned and expects that food inflation will continue to be a problem moving forward. Experts are warning that food prices will continue skyrocketing. So I ask again, Mr. Speaker, why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for all Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our budget delivers historic investments to build Canada strong. This means strong families and strong communities from coast to coast to coast. That includes supports for youth in building skills to help them find and access high-paying careers. We are investing in training and supports for 20,000 youth facing employment barriers. We are investing in an additional 24,000 Canada Summer Jobs opportunities this coming year, co-ops, internships, apprenticeship opportunities for over 55,000 post-secondary students. Canada's new government has a plan to invest in youth. I encourage members opposite to support this plan and to vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Canadians got a taste of one of the greatest sins a government can commit: overpromise and under-deliver.
That's right.
The Prime Minister promised a generational and transformational budget crafted by the so-called master of monetary policy. Instead of reducing the deficit and showing fiscal discipline, he produced one of the costliest budget deficits in our nation's history. Rather than providing relief to Canadians by reducing the industrial carbon tax, he chose to increase it. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister raising the industrial carbon tax and making food even more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This budget is about focusing on youth. Our government is investing in youth, particularly Indigenous youth. Investments like in Inuit University. It'll be a landmark step forward for education and reconciliation in Canada. It'll strengthen local economies, build capacity in the north, and support Inuit-led research. We hope the members opposite will support this initiative and vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, food professor, has quoted, "That's been our concern from day one. The gap between wholesale prices in Canada versus the U.S. food wholesale prices have actually increased, and we believe that one factor driving this is the carbon tax. It doesn't take a central banker to figure out that eliminating the industrial carbon tax will help lower food prices. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister choosing to raise the industrial carbon tax when so many Canadians can barely afford groceries?"
Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Climate Institute most recent research shows industrial carbon pricing have essentially no cost on groceries. In the face of uncertainty, Canadians are going to build the future we want to build for ourselves. As we work for the build the strongest economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker, our new government is helping our agriculture, fish, and seafood sectors adapt and respond to the economic challenges. This includes a new trade diversification strategy and $75 million of agri-marketing. I suggest they dig out their red and white sweaters and get them on and get on the bus.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, this budget proves one thing. The Liberals don't understand how real Canadians live. Every dollar this government spends comes straight out of Canadians' pockets, and under this Prime Minister, everything costs more. After years of inflation and higher taxes, they've chosen to raise the industrial carbon tax. That means higher prices at the checkout line. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
Good question. The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, when we invest in unions in Windsor, we all win. Mr. Speaker, and we are empowering unions. We're empowering unions in Windsor. We're empowering unions across the country to train our young people, because in Budget 2025, we invested that we're meeting our campaign commitment to double the Union Training Innovation Program, $75 million to help young people train to build Canada with Canadian lumber, Canadian steel, and Canadian unionized workers, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have tabled the most expensive budget with the biggest deficit in the country's history outside of the pandemic. This cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the price of food, and it's an irresponsible attack on our food security. Meanwhile, over 2 million Canadians are using food banks, and that will skyrocket with a deficit of nearly $80 billion. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop waging war on farmers and finally come up with a real plan to lower food prices? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have to admit I'm a bit surprised by the question from the member from the Conservative Party, because when she was a member of the Liberal Party in Quebec City, she voted in favour of putting a price on carbon. And so she'll be very relieved to learn that the industrial carbon price doesn't apply in Quebec, because Quebec has its own system. So it's just hypocrisy coming from the other side of the House. The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. While Canadians tighten their belts, this government keeps on spending recklessly. They've just added $90 billion in spending, or $5,400 per household. That's less money. This is going to affect people in Charlevoix. According to Sylvain Charlebois, the gap between wholesale food prices in Canada and the U.S. has grown, and the carbon tax is a major factor. Canada is the only G7 country to have had 4 consecutive months of rising food inflation. Why is the Prime Minister raising the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for everyone? The Honourable Minister. I'll repeat what the Prime Minister said. So that about the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices. It's virtually zero. And my colleague talked about Conservative hypocrisy when it comes to food security. This is just another one of their inconsistencies. When she was in Quebec City, they did put a price on carbon, and it didn't stop there. Every day they vote against our initiatives to help families, whether it's food school programs, the child tax benefit, and so we will do without any lessons from the other side. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Canadians rely on strong and reliable infrastructure every day, from safe roads and bridges to clean drinking water and modern public facilities. They expect the government to build, protect, and strengthen communities through historic investments. Can the Minister inform the House of the generational infrastructure investment planned in Budget 2025? The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for that question. Canadians need strong, resilient communities supported by reliable infrastructure. Budget 2025 launches the Building Strong Communities Fund, a historic $51 billion investment to deliver modern infrastructure, enable new housing development, and strengthen communities across the country. Together with our partners, we will deliver the infrastructure Canadians rely on every day.
The Supreme Court has ruled that a mere 1-year mandatory prison sentence for the heinous crime of possessing child sexual abuse and exploitation material is cruel and unusual punishment. The criminals in this case possess materials depicting evil acts against children as young as 3 years old. Conservatives believe it is outrageous that these types of child predators could walk free with less than a year in prison. This court decision must be overturned using the notwithstanding clause, but the Liberals have refused to act. Why are they more concerned with protecting the rights of these vile predators than the rights of these innocent victims?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, let me be unequivocal. Child abusers are heinous criminals and should be treated as such by Canada's criminal laws. We will be moving forward with legislative solutions that will give clear directions to the courts to ensure that serious crimes are met with serious penalties. If the Conservatives want not only to ask questions in the House but actually achieve progress on this file, they can stop the obstruction on the Strong Borders Act, which is meant to give powers to law enforcement to actually stop child abuse that we know is happening. It's one thing to talk in the House, it's another thing to cast a vote in a way that will make a difference. I invite them to join the cause.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Criminals who possess child sexual abuse and exploitation material deserve lengthy prison sentences. They cause unimaginable suffering and harm to innocent children. These precious kids will carry the scars of what was done to them for the rest of their lives. Conservatives and Canadians are calling on the government to invoke the notwithstanding clause and overturn this appalling Supreme Court ruling immediately. The Liberals refuse to do so. Why are the Liberals more concerned with protecting the rights of guilty pedophiles than standing up for the rights of innocent children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to be bringing forth legislation that is going to address this particular issue. But I would like to ask why the Conservatives have been against every measure that we have put forward to protect our children, Mr. Speaker. We brought an online harms legislation. They voted against it. We brought lawful access tools for law enforcement. They are against it. Mr. Speaker, why are they protecting child abusers?
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Two men pleaded guilty to having hundreds of images of innocent children. They were sexually abused, they were exploited, they were tortured. The Supreme Court made a decision that a 1-year jail sentence was too harsh. Conservatives vehemently disagree with this decision. The Liberals have an opportunity to use the notwithstanding clause and take a stand for innocent children. Why is this government concerned with protecting the rights of pedophiles instead of standing up for those children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, I have been speaking to lots of families that have been victims of crime.
That's right.
And Mr. Speaker, many have been asking for online harms legislation. We brought legislation like that in this House. And that member, Mr. Speaker, was active in voting against it and made sure that didn't pass in this House. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, law enforcement is also asking for tools to catch predators. But the Conservatives, guess what, are against it, Mr. Speaker. So why are they so concerned about the privacy rights of criminals instead of protecting our children?
Okay, colleagues, order. The Honourable Member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships first and results people can trust. We have listened at kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the Minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous...
Sorry, but a member is asking a question, and there are multiple other exchanges happening across the floor. I don't know. I couldn't identify the voices, but there were many voices. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I understand. Okay.
From the top, it was their side that interrupted.
It was both ends. Okay, we're going to start from the top. The Honourable Member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships and results people can trust. We have listened to kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous partners so communities see results where they live, and how this approach makes the North a driver of Canada's prosperity and a pillar of our sovereignty?
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Northerners asked for transformative change, and our new government answered with generational plans to build, protect, and empower. This means skills, homes, and hope for Northern youth. Our budget delivers year-round routes and ports across the Arctic Corridor and the Churchill Gateway to keep Canada strong and free.
Hear, hear.
Through Major Projects Office, projects will move faster with Indigenous partnership. So this means building with the North for the North.
Hear, 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 hear.
The Honourable Member for Poilievre, Jacques Cartier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals tabled a budget with a deficit of nearly $80 billion. Did you hear that right? Nearly $80 billion. That's huge. And the impact will be catastrophic. It's just the same old, same old. And what's more, the Liberals had the chance to reduce the cost of food by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. But what did they do instead? They increased it. Nearly $80 billion taken out of Canadian pockets, and nothing to counter food inflation. Can this Prime Minister stop breaking his promises and finally control his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My mother knows the difference between an investment and an expense. My kids get the difference. And this budget is an investment in our Canadian youth, in our own resources, so that we can get through this crisis. Canadians elected us to do that, and we will do it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of Canadians don't seem to know that between the day a budget is tabled and when it's voted on.
It's happy hour somewheres, guys. Like Elizabeth May will be like first in line for the cheap drinks. Gin and tonic, please.
The government can make changes. I desperately hope and that the answer will be yes to this question. Is the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance prepared to be flexible, work in a spirit for the national interest, and be prepared to make changes in this budget before it comes to a vote?
Good question.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course we are always listening to Canadians. What I would stress to the honourable member is that this is a budget that invests historically in climate competitiveness in this country, in getting Canada to net zero by 2050, and making sure that Canada remains a leader in the worldwide fight against climate change. I would invite her to compare us to any country around the world, especially our neighbours to the south. Put this in perspective and understand, and as I know she will, that this is an historic effort on an historic issue, and it's an historic budget, Mr. Speaker.
Et cela met fin à la période des questions.
And that puts an end to question period.
Comme il est.
It being 3:17, the House will now proceed to...
That's going to wrap it up right there for today's show. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Loony. I'm not loony. Like, the politics are what is crazy around here. This Liberal Party, like, never doubt them, guys. We're in a mess. Like, we had Chris Donchema, the coward traitor, whatever. I always thought he would. I always had a weird sense about Chris Donchema. Like, he seemed likable, but not really on board with what the party was doing. So maybe they're better off, like, just losing that dead weight. It's a shame here. He was the only Conservative that was elected in Nova Scotia, and now we've got a big goose egg. It sucks. Like, people pick on the East. Like, again, 45% of our voters here vote for change for the Conservatives. It's a wild time. Anyhow, this is it. What we do here at Canadian Loony is we show Canadian politics from in the trenches, like what really happens. And that is what I would advise you to base your opinion on, not what I'm saying or what any other independent is saying on there. Watch the politics though, because once you see it, nobody's that bad at poker that they can't read when they're being lied to or tricked or duped. I know that the audience here is very informed and well educated because we watched the politics here together. And it is fun. If you're in the chat room, try to poke jokes at these clowns, because it's the only way that I find that I'm able to vent my frustration. Do you know what I mean? It helps being able to make a mockery out of their mockery of us, because they don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about your grandkids. They don't care about any of that shit. They don't care about health care or anything except the fact that they can print their own money and get rich on that. It's just ridiculous. Anyhow, guys, I got to run. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe, get notified. We'll catch you in the next episode. I've got somebody knocking at my door right now. I've got to run. That's it. We're out. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Rhonda. Good to see you, Mr. Pickles. Everybody, that's it. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. We'll catch you next time. Thank you all for watching.